Louise-Bedford here, the host of the Talking Trading podcast. This is where traders excel. I wanted to kick off with a little story. I'm about to introduce our guest in just a moment, but we did a lot of different expo presentations way back in the late 90s, early 2000 time frame, and I did an expo presentation that I thought was pretty good actually. And then after I popped down off the stage, the guest that I'm about to introduce was laughing and laughing, and he said, "Who's the Prime Minister?" And I said, "Ron Howard." And he said, no, you just announced to everybody that the Prime Minister is a Hollywood director and our actual Prime Minister is John Howard. Do you know, if you ask me who was Prime Minister from way back then, I will still say Ron Howard, because somehow that has become a rut in my brain. I thought that was real. I related it to everything to do with that name, sounding very similar to John. And now, to me, the Prime Minister has always been Ron Howard from that late 90s, early 2000s phase. So that's how I believe this guest and I bonded, through me making a fool of myself, which is a wonderful basis for a friendship, and it shows you how long we have actually been friends. Now, Alan Hull is the guest in question. Alan Hull has been my friend for so many years, and I have been incredibly remiss not to have him on this podcast. He is the best-selling author of Active Investing, Trade My Way, and Invest My Way. Alan is a recovered alcoholic, and I do relate a lot to his background, because those of you that know me quite personally, they will know that I grew up with an alcoholic in my household. My father was an alcoholic, and Alan has helped provide a framework for me around some of my dad's behaviour, which I have definitely benefited from. And he is embarking on a brand new venture, probably not all that new now because he's quite well known in this field, the wellness area. And I'd like to introduce Alan on this twin-pillared concept of not only talking about trading, but also the importance of maintaining our body and mind to maintain our trading performance. Alan Hull, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Louise. And yes, it's been a long road since I was your fact checker. So, but anyway, yeah, no. So, and it's been a great journey, and it has been a journey. It's been what two decades plus.
Yeah.
With people like you, and I remember, I just probably digress here for a second. That even in those early days, we're all working together. It was sort of cooperation rather than competition. And it's been great. It has been a great journey, and it's been a fantastic career thanks to the friendships we've made with each other, and the support we've given each other has really made the whole process not only fun but a lot easier than it could have been. So thank you for having me on, and I'll get you onto one of my shows soon too. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I still actually use one of the resources that we recorded together way back when in my mentor program. It's a concept of the role of the trader, the full-time trader, and what we actually do, because we both know that that can be a difficult transition. And I would like to talk to you about transitions as a full-time trader, but you're also a best-selling author, and now you are developing yourself in the wellness area. Tell us about your latest venture and how you've managed to transition into this area.
Right. Okay. Now, obviously, to me, trading, share trading, is an enabler. So to me, money is an enabler. I'm passionate about share trade. I've always, my whole life, been able to do what I love to do, what I'm passionate about doing. And I mean, I'm passionate about share trading. Share trading, as you know, we talk about this, full-time share trading isn't really full-time in terms of the time demands. So it enables us to do whatever we want to do. Now, you and I both, we taught, we write books, we use our time to share our knowledge and our skill. We're educators at heart. And that's all been fantastic. But what really prompted the new venture wellness was COVID-19, was the pandemic, it was the lockdown. And it was coming through that. I have a background, as you know, you talked about that already. I'm a sober alcoholic. And just to give a bit of background, I got sober 33 years ago, so I've been sober a long time. The secret to staying sober is to be well. So, in other words, you have to get sober and you have to stay well. It's a proactive process. So, by night, I don't get over hungry, I don't get over thirsty, I don't get overtired, I don't get, I make sure that I stay mentally and physically well, and I have to stay on top of all of my health completely in a very holistic way. Now, to educate people on this, if you look at the 12-step program of recovery, that is a wellness program. That was a wellness program created in the 1930s by the first people who started AA. And now it's used as a wellness program across a whole lot of different afflictions. But that's a wellness program. That's what it is. So in order not to pick up a drink, I have to stay well. So I'm very aware on this level and have been for a very long time. We came into COVID-19 and I realized, I was struggling. We were forced to isolate. We're basically forced into a situation where we're forced to isolate. A lot of us had to deal with a lot of stresses. A lot of people were under a huge amount of financial pressure, this type of thing. Obviously, isolating with people that you're in close relations with, that put pressure socially.
Heck yes.
But we've talked about this. Your comfort zone is a muscle. Think of it as a muscle. And if you don't push it, if you don't, press on the boundaries of your comfort zone, it will shrink. And that's exactly what happened to people. They're forced to isolate, so they didn't have to interact with other people. And of course, a lot of them, I think alcohol consumption went up 60% during isolation. Incredible figures. And I could see this happening. And I say, and people were forced into isolation. And of course, when they were released from that isolation, it was really important that we got out, we socialized, and we started, stretching and working on expanding our comfort zones again. And so many people, of course, didn't. They've sort of gone into this new norm of this shrunken comfort zone and being less social, less interaction, and not as well. Now wellness starts for me from mental wellness. And it starts mentally, and my body, my physicality is very much a function of my mental state. Now, this all, of course, absolutely ties into trading and well. And what I'm about to talk to now very much ties into trading. I'm aware of myself on a mental level. So when I first got sober, it was like, Alan, you need to get well and you need to stay well. And you need to understand what that is. You need to understand what is wellness. So you have to learn about it first. So recovery starts with education. And this is on my website. It's right at the top. So recovery starts with education. So what is wellness? Well, mental wellness, you've got to understand your brain. If I said to you, I've got a headache, you wouldn't say to me, why don't you put a Band-Aid on it? Or if I said to you, I've got a cut on my wrist, then you'd say, well, you wouldn't take an aspirin, you would put a Band-Aid on it. Now, that all sounds very silly because we know our bodies, we understand our physical wellness and our physicality. We don't understand, when we talk about our mental wellness, we don't understand how our brain works. So people don't understand. This is a huge amount of ignorance. We don't learn about how our brain works in very simple terms. So what I realized this. And of course, being a share trader, and the beauty of being a share trader or being successful in that regard, I can do anything I want to do.
Yes.
I've got the freedom to do anything I want to do. And if I see something and I think, hey, I want to do this, then I go and do it. And that's exactly what I did.
We do, I think, as well, Alan, is not only do we decide to take up golf, we buy the best golf lessons, we employ the best pro, we have the most amazing outfits. I think what happens with trading, because often people who are attracted to trading, they are the people who want to excel in multiple arenas, because usually people don't grow up wanting to be a trader. They generally pop that alongside something that they've already got going. So that need for drive and perfectionism tends to seep into almost every area of our life. I personally find that I have to watch what hobbies I take up, because that I'm going to pop the word in there, obsession, because it
Yeah,
goes through
yeah,
my head. It's not just my actions, it's my thought processes. They zero in on that new hobby so that it's almost taking up every spare moment. And I think a lot of traders are like that, and that can actually interfere with our mental wellness. So I'd be
yeah.
curious to hear your thoughts on how do traders keep a more moderate view in not only their trading but in the other areas of their life.
Well, I think again, realizing what the situation was with say COVID is that people didn't understand how their brain works. So I embarked on the new business of Alan Whole Wellness, which is all about educating people. That's what it is. It's another education business. Now, I did a lizard brain talk, what we call the lizard brain talk, which I did, that was about 12, 13 years ago. And that was based around the same stuff. And it was to educate traders and investors on the same stuff. And what it is really understanding how your brain works, because you're right. I mean, we suffer, perfectionism, obsession, all this sort of stuff. And, particularly with trading, you're dealing in a probabilistic world. And to try and be a perfectionist or approach it from an engineering perspective where, input A equals output B, you're going to end up in a lot of trouble. It doesn't work like that. So, you have to really understand. I mean, we then slip into the potential issues of, I don't like getting things wrong. I don't like making mistakes. And this is all tied in with the obsession and all that sort of stuff and perfectionism. And you have to understand that the nature of share trading is such that you're going to make mistakes. Or sorry, you're going to suffer losses. All right. So you're going to make profits. You're gonna cop losses. And copping a loss is not a mistake. It's not, you haven't done something wrong. That's the nature of what you're doing. The problem is that we've got a thinking brain and a feeling brain. And this is kind of the first bit that I teach people as far as the understanding your brain. And the problem is I've got to trade with my thinking brain. And if I start trading with my feeling brain, I'm in a lot of trouble. So a simple example of that would be where I suffer a loss, but like a trading loss, but I actually execute correctly. So I have a good setup. I have a valid trigger. I enter a trade and it goes against me. And that happens all the time. So it results in a loss. So what happens there, if I go and, for instance, look at the chart, I activate my thinking brain. My analytical thinking brain looks at a chart and it says, right, this happened, boom, 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 go back. I'll roll the chart back. Yes, that's correct. I'm in real time. That's the information I was presented with, and I made the correct decision. Da 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 da. So I didn't do anything wrong in terms of execution. So, however, it resulted in a loss. Now, if I look at the loss, if I look at my bank account, right, and we call this trading your bank account, my feeling brain, my instincts kick in, my survival instinct, because money is all about survival. So my survival instinct kicks in and goes, oh my God, I've suffered a loss. Oh, what can I do? What can I do? And that's where we start to panic. We don't think straight, and we start to trade our bank account. And that's if you understand how your brain works, right, rather than someone, don't trade your bank account, it's easy for us to say that. But without someone really understanding how their brain works, they don't really understand why. Because if you trade the money, if you look at the money and you trade the money, it's your instincts that are driving the bus. It's your feeling, instinctive brain, not your analytical brain. When we look at a chart, it activates our analytical brain. So it's very important that I look at my charts and I don't sit there looking at my bank balance. I always say that's a problem with the trading platforms, because you go in there and they're either red or they're green, or, and of course people get hooked into that. And then the gambling, that side of it comes in, and, all that, and that's your feeling brain. And we've really got to keep that childish feeling brain in our heads really out of the trading picture, and let the analytical brain do the job. So if you execute well, and I've done this, the best trade I ever did. You remember the best trade you ever did?
Yes.
So you remember that? Yeah, everyone does. Everyone remembers the best trade, the worst trade, And so the best trade I ever did, I lost money. But I reduced what was going to be a $3,000 loss into a $600 loss. So it was just superbly executed. It was surgical. It was surgical. And I got out, I reduced this loss, and I still remember it to this day. Telstra, it was a Telstra trade, and I was just about to make an announcement, and I didn't wait for the announcement. I went early, and it was just perfect. I still remember it. And but the point is, even though you've taken a loss in that situation, you should go and take your wife out for tea, or you should go and, buy yourself a milkshake or go to the movies. You should reward yourself, right, for that, because the execution was correct.
And you followed your trading
And
plan,
you followed your
because
trading plan,
that's the
correct. And that's,
aspect too.
yeah,
When you're thinking about these ways that the brain is formed, and we wonder, why did this occur? One of the things is it's from an evolutionary biology perspective. So that inner part of your brain, that very central part, is the thing that reacts to keep all of our ancestors safe. That shadow could be a tiger. That's the instant reaction. That's that feeling brain. And that older thinking brain wraps over the top of that feeling brain.
yes,
And
yes,
that's the more modern part of our brain. That's the part we're trying to engage when it comes to trading.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I think it's quite amusing, because as traders, we like to think of ourselves as sophisticated individuals, but actually what we're trying to do is to get that feeling and thinking brain bowing to our will, rather than just reaction and being very reactive to the markets.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that thinking brain, you want that in the driver's seat. Another example of it, which I love to talk. So we're not wired to trade. One of the things is, you talked about that survival instincts. Yes, we're hardwired to survive. So when you make a profit, so you're in a trade, you enter a trade, bang, it goes into profit. One of the first things that comes into our brain is sell, take the money and run, take the money and run, because our risk averse brain, that part of the brain, that survival instinct, is saying, Alan, you've got $2,000 sitting here on the table. Grab that money now. Why are you taking risk? Why are you risking this money? Take that money. That's $2,000. That's whatever it is. Take that money off the table. Take the money and run. Now that means that, and then we do the opposite. That's when the market goes up. So the market's going our way. We have an urge, a feeling to sell, right? That's not very good for a trend trader, because a trend trader, the market goes our way. It's confirming our thinking, not our feeling. It's confirming our thinking, and yet we want to get out of the trade. We want to close out the position. So that's counter to a trend trading approach. On the other hand, I buy a position, it goes against me, I go into a loss, and then the hope kicks in. I don't want to sell it, because while I own that position, I've still got hope. I've got hope alive in my heart that it's going to come back my way, right? If I close the position, there's no hope left. So we don't want to close a losing position, but we have an urge to close a winning position. So that's the exact opposite of what a trend trader should be doing. That's pretty much the exact opposite of what trading's about. So that's where we have to be very much aware that on the one side, we have feelings when we trade, and we have thoughts and thinking analytical process. And they're the two things we really have to manage. That's why I say to people, people say to me, you don't drink, but you still go to regular meetings, where you listen to other alcoholics tell their stories. What's that all about? Why do you do that? So what I'm doing is I'm training. I'm constantly training. I'm not learning, because that childish feeling part of my brain, I don't teach it. I train it. I teach my thinking brain, but I train that feeling part of my brain. And that's why when you get a trade and you execute well, you follow your trading plan, regardless of whether you make or lose money, you should reward yourself. So you're training that part of your brain. And that's
Alan, that
why,
is gold. What
yeah,
you've just said there is the reason why we need to be continually exposed to resources that can help us develop that training versus teaching, where we train that inner brain, that lizard brain, but we teach the thinking brain, is That is
Yeah.
absolute gold. I love what you've said there. So, we've covered a couple of methods to be able to do that. So, one of them is continual exposure, making sure we're in the arena and that we stay learning in that open mindset. Another one is following a written trading plan
Yeah.
so that we are providing a framework for that thinking mind. The thinking mind loves structure and it loves routine. So I think that's very important. We've got both of those bases covered. And the other aspects that you've mentioned is to learn about that interaction between that lizard brain and that thinking brain. What other tools can traders utilize to maintain objectivity?
I think one of the best ways is externalization. I think that, we can get caught up in our own little heads here, and the two parts of the brain start talking. You need to stay, as I talked about, alcoholic recovery from addiction, right? Dealing with those kind of problems. We need to stay healthy. It's a proactive strategy. We stay ahead of the curve. I never get to the point where I have an urge to drink. I don't get to that point. I feel too good. Okay. One of the things that can mess us up, even people who absolutely know all this stuff. You know this stuff. I know this stuff. Doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to execute it very well. And my feeling brain can come up, can usually in the morning. Usually in the morning. I get up in the morning. As most people, your feeling brain wakes up first. So our thinking brain is awake at night. So usually when we sit down to have our dinner, we've had a day, we've done well, we're feeling strong, we're feeling confident, we're in control, but we wake up in the morning and we get morning anxiety. That's because our feeling brain wakes up and it's all about survival, and it goes, oh my God, what can go wrong? What can go wrong today? And of course, it's looking for threats. So we were obsessed in the morning with all the things that can go wrong, and we've got a confidence problem. This is just your brain doing what your brain does. I also say to people, I feel anxious in the morning. I said, you're meant to feel anxious in the morning. That's part of the waking up process. You actually got a hormone release that says you can't go back to sleep. Don't go back to sleep. It's time to get up. So it's all normal stuff. You've just got to learn to control it. One of the ways of not letting, and I call it the internal kind of feedback loop, to stop that from happening, and I know you know this stuff, externalize. Now, whether that's you write it down, you journal it, whether you share it, whether you have a trading buddy, you talk to that trading buddy. And I occasionally I've come up with some mad ideas, about trading. I'm sure you have too, some radical strategies and stuff. And you go and share them with someone else, and they sort of shine a light on it, and they go, no, okay, fair enough, wrong. Let's move on. So, but you've got to get it out of your head, and you can get into. We have a saying: stinking thinking leads to drinking, and stinking thinking leads to bad trading as well. And what you need to do to break that cycle, that internal cycle, is to share. You take an unhealthy person, you take someone who's mentally unwell. One of the first key signs, and I've done counselling, by the way, through AA. I've been a phone counsellor for over 2 decades now. One of the things that one of the issues you find is they isolate. So sign of mental unhealthy behaviour is when people isolate. Okay. A sign of good mental health is when people talk. You can't shut me up, and I know you like a bit of a chat too, Lou. So and it's a good sign. It's a good sign. So very much traders need to externalize. They need to share. They need to talk about stuff. Now, for instance, and we can. How old's this? I love to test things by saying, how old's this? How long's this been around for? This is confession. It's been around since for 1,500 years. It's confession. You'd go into confession and you'd offload. You'd share. Problem halved. Problem shared is a problem halved. You're only as sick as your secrets. This is where all this stuff comes from. Externalize. So that's journaling. That's talking to a trading buddy. That's being part of a support group. Okay. And I know we become better traders by writing books.
Yeah.
Because we externalize and we have to crystallize all of the stuff, right, that we know, and it's going to be proofread by how many thousands of people, right? And so that actually makes us better traders by doing that. People often say, well, if you're such a great trader, why are you writing books and why do you teach people? I say, well, the truth is that makes me a better trader. because that's my way of externalizing. That's my way of externalizing and doing it obviously in a very open public forum. I well understand that's not for everybody. And that's why, there's not a lot of us around, but certainly, yeah, that's a key aspect. That's a key tool that we use, is to share and talk about stuff, because that if you isolate as a trader, you're not going to come out with a good result. It's very important to
Yeah.
share.
And it
Yep.
does end up, when you were talking about that strategy, I've come up with this great trading strategy, and then you talk about it and then you realize it's not so clever. I've found though, when I've come up with that great strategy, I didn't tell anybody about it and I've implemented it. I'll give you an example, Alan. I came up, I know you're going to want to know what this is. Everybody is. I came up with a no loss strategy.
Wow.
Good. Hey,
Well, no
yeah.
drawdown. I love it.
Yeah.
No drawdown.
No,
Yeah.
no drawdown.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a drum roll somewhere needing to be drum rolled right now. So what I did, and just think of the brilliance of this, is I put on at exactly the same moment a long and a short trade on the one share.
Right. Okay. Okay. That's
Yeah.
no drawdown.
There's
There's
no
no drawdown. That's how you
drawdown.
make a profit.
Correct. There's your problem. So that was
So,
a really exciting day for me when I did that, because I literally thought, I have cracked the code. This is genius.
yeah,
But no,
yeah,
it wasn't genius.
yeah,
We needed
yeah,
a bit of
yeah,
a healthy
yeah,
dose of reality
yeah.
and a voice of reason. And I want to talk to you also about, where can we break chains in life? Now, I'm speaking completely open with you because you're my friend and you know my background. But when I was quite young, I decided to break the chain because I come from a very long line of alcoholics, and my parents' best man, Paul Wynne Evans, who's no longer with us, but I just owe him such a debt of gratitude. When I was about 13, he said to me, Louise, you are making all the wrong moves and you are making all the wrong decisions. Daughters of alcoholics either become an alcoholic themselves or they marry an alcoholic, and you are on your way to doing both. And he shook me up so much because there's this very mild-mannered, kind family friend holding me by the shoulders, and literally I could tell he just wanted to shake me to get the message across. And I want to talk to you about this because I think we have conscious choices to make as adults, and often those conscious choices end up heightening our pain. A lot of people who come to see me because something has gone wrong in the markets for them, it can actually be to do with money scripts. So how were they brought up around money? What were the things that they were force-fed as a child? What did they take on subconsciously? And some of those people have an ACE childhood, and you might have heard of this. It's adverse childhood experiences, a trauma in their childhood. And they're either repeating that trauma subconsciously, not really realizing what they're doing, or they're looking to move away from that trauma in such an extreme way that creates its own set of problems. Now, I'm guessing you've seen the same thing in the recovering alcoholics groups that you've looked after. I'd really love your input on the impact of an ACE childhood, adverse childhood experiences, for not only when we're trying to recover from a childhood trauma, but how do we get it to not leak into other areas of our life?
Look, it's that's very broad. What you've just talked about there is actually very broad, because what you said earlier on, in framing your question, I thought was really, really important. One of the things, we have plenty of resources at the moment in addiction therapy, addiction help, mental health, all those things. There's plenty of tools out there. So, if you listen to the media, you'd think, well, there's this, we need these tools, we need these tools, we need this help. That's not the case. There's actually plenty of tools there. It's the fact that people are choosing not to pick them up and use them. So they haven't reached that threshold moment where they go, snap, wow. And that is a very, very serious thing, because that's when the recovery and everything changes. So for me, it was 5 days into a drinking binge and I collapsed in a heap on the kitchen floor, and I got a flash of reality. I saw who I was, what I was, where I was going, where I'd been, And I just said, this is this is just this is bullshit. Excuse me, but this is just not going to work. And I reached out for help, and that's when my whole life changed. So that's the rock bottom, and you hear that talked about, that expression. So it's the rock bottom. Now, that person, spoke to you at 13 and snapped you out of it. So you then that's the critical thing. Unfortunately, for every recovered alcoholic, the last time I checked the statistics, there's 35 practicing alcoholics in the world. So the actual number that get well is extremely small compared to those who are out there still suffering. But they don't realize they're suffering, right? They don't realize they're suffering. Or they're enjoying their disease so much that they're not doing anything about it. Now, you would also have the situation where you have people who play the victim, and they're in a victim role. They have been victims. They've really been victims of childhood trauma and all this sort of stuff. But they're kind of immersed in that whole kind of life of being a victim, and they're really not wanting to get out of it. If you know what I mean, there's an upside to it. There's an upside to drinking alcohol. It makes you feel good. So I mean, we have a saying: "Taught me to fly and took away the sky," and that's exactly what alcohol did to me. So it's that you went through that critical change point. I went through that critical change point. For you, it was 13. For me, it was 27. I've seen people come in as late as 65, 70 who go through that critical change point. Most people don't. So it's that, we have, if someone to come to me and say, I've got a son who's got a drinking problem. Can you help me? And the answer is, unfortunately, no, I can't. Right? Until they come to me and say, can you help me? Then I can help them. Right? So that unfortunately is an internal mechanism that has to kind of go click in order for the change to occur. And that's something that, I mean, that until that occurs, people aren't even looking. People aren't even looking. So I can tell you with the wellness stuff, it with the money, you know it with the trading. Many of the people that we deal with in trading are successful people. They're actually successful people. They're not people who are struggling to make money. They're people who are usually successful in careers and things and want to transition into share trading. So we're dealing with successful people, right? You go into a gym, you find a lot of healthy people in the gym. So it's kind of, that's, with wellness, we launched a wellness business, and we've got a lot of mentally well people attracted to the product because
Yeah.
they get it. They're awake already. They're awake already to it. They're aware. Their awareness is there. So they're attracted to the product. What I'd ultimately like to do, of course, I'm trying to get to the people who aren't that well, who need the help. But unfortunately, they're not looking. So the tragedy is, the paradox is that there's all these resources around. It's all out there. But unfortunately, people aren't choosing to pick up those tools. And that's the tragedy about mental illness as opposed to mental wellness, where someone's mentally not right. If you're physically not right, if your arms, if your arm's hanging off, you go to a doctor. Obviously, oh, my arm's hanging off, better go to a doctor. People have got things wrong in their head. They don't, that's not how they don't think that. They don't think, oh, I've got something mentally wrong, I need to go and see a psychologist, or maybe I've got a drinking problem, I should go to AA. That's not what they think. And that's if you can solve that problem, Lou, please send me an email. It's a huge one. I mean, and there's a lot of people out there, I think, banging their heads against brick walls, trying to, get that to change. I think all you can do is put the banner up there and say, I'm here, where I can help, but you've got to come to me. And
Yeah.
that's as far as it goes. You can't, that like I say, that click, that shift, that rock bottom, that's very much an internal thing that unfortunately we just can't. And the problem is, and I could talk about this all day. I won't, but I could. One of the biggest problems is in this area is that modern lifestyle is actually facilitating people remaining unwell. Okay. For instance, people are immersing themselves in the online world. and they can ignore and they can opt out of the reality of what's going on in their life, and they can immerse themselves into an online world. I'm seeing this happening a lot with teenagers, and so they're not having to face up to the reality of what's going on in their lives, and that's creating greater deniability. That gives them greater deniability. So we have less physical demands on ourselves. We can be physically less well because we don't chop wood anymore, do we? We don't mow lawns. We don't clean spouts. We don't wash cars. We've got all this technology and services to do it for us. So there's less demands on us physically, but there's less demands on us mentally as well. And that's a function of our modern lifestyle. And I think that's helping, or rather, that's one of the things that's really damaging a lot of mental health. Is the modern lifestyle in the modern world. This is not a good thing. I think someone said at a survey the other day, I found it astounding. There was 28 meals. The average person eats 28 takeaway meals a week.
What?
20. It was 28. I was like, and I'm like, hang on, I don't eat 28 meals in a week. I don't know where that number comes from. But it was something like that. It was an incredible number of meals.
Because we can get it delivered to our home now.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm curious as well.
Yeah.
I know from a trading perspective, systems are incredibly important because we cannot rely on willpower when we're in the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
But I'm getting the feeling from what you're saying from a wellness perspective that you're looking at systems very closely rather than just relying on willpower.
Well, that's right. I mean, it comes from, you have understanding. You have to understand what's going on. You have to, you have to then know that, okay, I've got to train my feeling brain. I've got to teach my thinking brain. I understand all that now. Let's do that. Let's go back to trading. So you've got trading systems. Now, trading systems are very good at isolating your feeling brain because you just got to follow the discipline of the system, and it's a structure, puts it into place, puts our thinking brain in the driving seat. Again, what I'm finding is people are coming along and saying, oh, if I use this system, I'll make money. I don't have to think anymore. And I mean, it wasn't like that when we began. I really felt that people wanted to be educated in, trend trading. Why does trend trading work? How does quantitative risk management work? This is a trade setup. This is a trigger. We break it down. This is all the key components of a trading system. So it's all about the education. It's all about understanding it. It's like driving a car. Nowadays people drive cars that don't understand how they work. I remember my first driving lesson, they walked me up to the car and they said, right, it has an engine and it goes through a gearbox. You have a drive shaft, and it was all explained to me, and it made me a better driver. I think it made me a better driver. And I think with share trading, it's the same thing. We taught people, I wrote a book, as you wrote books, explaining the system, why we do it, how it's constructed, and then you might provide sort of follow-up information or support material, whatever. But the point is we were educating people and then giving them the tools, the power tools. Now it's sort of a case, just give me the power tool.
Yeah, run around with that live wire in your hand and just hope you don't electrocute yourself.
Electrocute yourself, and I mean, so I have people who say to me, I've got medium-term trend trading systems. We're in a non-trending market. So right now, we're pretty much in a non-trending. I have been over sort of 21, 22, 23. Non-trending market. Well, people saying to me, oh, this trading system's not working. I say, I know it's not working. It's not a trend trading. It's a trend trading system. It's not going to work in a non-trending market. So, I didn't know that. I said, well, you didn't know that because you didn't come to a class. I never taught you that. So you just went and bought the system off the shelf and tried to apply it without sort of taking in all the other relevant information. So, trading is about, to me, I say to people, and I've got a lot of trading systems. We sell now over, we've got 10 separate trading systems in all, but it's a toolbox. I say to people, it's a toolbox. So the market is always changing, and you've got to use the right tool for the right market. So I can't provide one tool. I've got a range of tools. And they go, well, which tool should I use? I said, that's the question. So we teach that, or you can ask me, right? So that's where I come into play. So, but they think that, yeah, there's a system. I'll just grab the system, go and use the system, and oh, it doesn't work. And of course, then they walk away.
Alan, you
So
have been absolutely spectacular to talk with. I've loved our conversation. Now, what should people's next step be and how can they get in touch?
yeah, well, I've got two websites now. I've got two businesses. I've got two websites. The share trading one, the investing share trading one is alanhull.com. So, and that's always been alanhull.com, hasn't changed. That's still there with lots of free information. There's PDFs, there's videos. We've got online courses on the homepage. So it's all there. The wellness is, would you believe, alanhullwellness.com. So quite simple. Go there. All the resources there. We've got the straight sort of wellness course. I specialize, as you probably realize, in addiction. So we actually have an alcohol addiction page. We have an ebook. We have podcast. We have videos. And of course, we've got the actual course itself. And the alcohol addiction program is the course. So you go through the educational process, and then you have access to me. And that's open-ended, by the way. It's not, you don't pay for an ongoing sort of fee or anything. It's a one-off fee. And then you have ongoing access to me where you can use me for counseling and support after you've done that program. So when we have a conversation, you know what I'm talking about. So very good. So thanks for that.
Alan, you are a beautiful man. I'm so proud to have you as a friend. And the last 2 decades, watching both of us struggle and grow and delve into different areas in our life has just been an absolute blessing. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.